Welcome to John Keells X 3.0, the meetup for the year 2019. And as you are very well aware, the early application deadline ended on the 6th of January. And so some of you have met that deadline. And for those of you who haven't met that deadline, don't worry. We've still got time till the 5th of February until the application phase would end. 6th of February, sorry. So yes, if you still want more information, this is what the meetup is all about. Feel free to quiz the people behind John Keells X. We've got a few individuals who you could tap into and quiz later on this evening as well. Quiz their mind, tap into their mindset of what a startup and an accelerator program should be and what it should entail. So yes, talking about investment opportunities, at demo stage you have 2.5 million up for grab, and at the accelerator stage we have 25 million rupees up for grabs. So yes, that's a lot of money for a startup, and this is what John Keells X is all about. And we are very excited from John Keells to be a big part of this program, and this has been a successful venture for the group across the past 2 years, and as the title suggests here this evening, 3.0, we are on our third run for this accelerator program. To introduce our judges who will be really manning your decisive future in the startup scene, we have Mr. Krishan Balendra, our chairman for the John Keells Group, and Mr. Gihan Kure, the Group Finance Director of JKH, and also Mr. Ramesh Shanmuganathan, the Group CIO and Executive Vice President for John Keells, Mr. Ajit Gunawardana, Founder and CEO of Bluestone Capital, Mr. Dumit Fernando, Chairman of Asia Securities Holdings. So those are your judges. Feel free to tap into their minds as well. We've got Mr. Balendra, Mr. Gihan Kure, and we'll be joined by Mr. Ajit Gunawardana shortly as well. And of course, our group CIO, Ramesh Shamgunathan, is also with us. And feel free to quiz them up throughout the evening, and that's what it's all about. To start off, we'd like to invite Mr. Krishan Balendra, the chairman of the John Keells Group, to address and open proceedings.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the John Keells X meetup. Good to see a big crowd. I think we have more than 150 young entrepreneurs who were expected to attend. This is the, I know it's third John Keells X campaign that we are having. But if I remember right, I think it's a second meetup, although it says 3.0 meetup. Is it the third meetup, Rishan? Yeah, okay, so the third meetup. So we've been through one round where we selected 6 teams to join our accelerator program, and where we made an investment. They are located, as we have committed, in office space provided by us. They are at our offices at Crescat, and it's been an interesting, I think, a big learning curve for them, but also a big learning curve for us. Initially, just choosing the parties, then finalizing the agreements, and then the day-to-day interactions. But I can say that overall, while we've had a few downsides, I think overall it's been a very positive experience for everyone. Few of the, not all 6, I think it'll be too optimistic to say all 6, but recently we had a presentation from 2 of them, and it is very pleasing that within just a year to see the kind of progress that they have made. And the investment, Russell said it was a fairly large investment for a startup. I mean, it's sort of 2.5 million rupees. I initially thought maybe that won't be enough, but I'm surprised that all the companies have not really fully utilized those funds. But the bigger thing, more than the funds and the office space that John Keells provides, it's the support from all our infrastructure, corporate finance, group finance, legal, all the functions at John Keells, and where relevant from our businesses. In the first 6 companies in last year's round, we didn't really have businesses that were directly linked to our existing business verticals. Our preference is to choose companies that have a closer link to our businesses, and we will look out for those companies, but that doesn't mean we will exclude companies that are not in some way an augmentation for our existing businesses. Preference is that, but we won't exclude others. So welcome again. I think Vishant will go into the details in a while. The whole purpose here is for you to network, to meet each other, and to meet the key people at John Keells who will be supporting you through this process. We are all here to chat with you. We also have Professor Samarajiva, who will talk to you in a while. We have Ajit Gunawardana, who is the head of Bluestone, but also the founder chairman of PICME. I think he'll join us in a while. He's here. And we have Dumit Fernando, who must be on his way. He's the chairman of Asia Securities, but has also been involved with a lot of startups going back many years from his days in New York. So take your chance to integrate, to mix and to talk and network, and I look forward to chatting with all of you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Balendra. And as mentioned, I think I cannot stress enough the importance of really tapping into the minds of the leadership here at John Keells itself, and people like Mr. Gunawardhan over here who had established themselves at John Keells and progressed beyond the group itself, and really and those are examples you could really tap into and quiz this evening as well. And next up, as a guest speaker, we've got an interesting individual who was appointed as the chair of the ICT Agency for Sri Lanka, the apex body for information and communication technology within the government of Sri Lanka, and appointed in April 2018. He was also one of its founding directors from 2003 to 2005, but there's a huge list in his profile. I wouldn't want to go through it all, but ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Professor Rohan Samarajiva.
I guess I'm doing this in official capacity, so I will begin as I always do. Ayubowan, Vanakkam, and good evening. Because I do work for the government, and I believe we need to follow our own policies. I'm actually not the best person to talk about startups. I've had some startups, I've met payroll, but I have not been actually market facing. I have had to deal with donors and people who give me large chunks of money to do interesting things. Even ICTA itself was a startup, you could say, in 2003, and we had to run around and assemble the resources. When it comes to real startups, I actually seek advice from my son, Indi Samarajiva, who's probably somewhere here. That's the right age group. So anybody who wants to talk to me might as well just go directly to the source of all my knowledge on startups. And of course, other young people. After I joined ICTA, I realized that we had a very important target that the industry had come up with. And I want to emphasize that it's an industry that had come up with. That is, in the course of the national export strategy discussions, the ICT sector, we had been talking for 5 years. So why I emphasize the 5 years is that sort of goes beyond one government, one set of, we have multiple prime ministers depending on the day of the week kind of place we are now. So, multiple leaderships and multiple so on. But the important thing is, that is how we should make policy. So the national export policy, particular export strategy, particularly the IT-related things, the conversation had been going on for a long time. And based on that, they came up with a number that I find challenging, but I think is doable, which is 5 million in exports, 5 billion in exports, not 5 million, sorry. And a very interesting fact which is relevant to the people here, which is 1,000 startups, 1,000 new startups by 2022. So I was scratching my head and thinking, now how are we going to do this? We created ICTA not as a conventional government organization, but over time the government has kind of taken over our procedures. And to some extent we have become a little bit government-ish. How are we going to create 1,000 startups? So I started my investigation from Jaffna. I've been to Jaffna twice in the last 8 months in my official capacity, and I've been talking to people there. Because my feeling is that if you have a really hard problem, and you can fix that problem, the other problems will get solved. So in Jaffna, I've been talking to YAL Geek Hub, I've been talking to the Northern Chamber of IT and people like that. And I can see what is required. Hopefully, we'll be able to give them what is required. But it's what we have here in Colombia, which is we have a larger ecosystem. And people like Keells, and there are several others, maybe they are your competition, so I won't mention names, but I think everybody can fill in the blanks, of people who are really putting resources behind creating the ecosystem. Because this is a challenging activity that you guys are engaged in, to start new businesses, to take risks, when your parents are saying, why don't you do something that we can explain to our aunts and uncles and so on, and Puta, why don't you do something normal? That kind of stuff, right? My mother still asks me, what is Indrajit doing? She can't understand. But then on the other hand, she doesn't know what I'm doing either, right? I have difficulty explaining what I do to her also. But particularly in Indrajit's case, what is he actually doing? So, we have all these real problems that you guys are facing. And I think the really important thing is the ecosystem. You need people to talk to, you need people to learn from, you need people to commiserate with you, and you need to commiserate with other people. You need to gripe about things, you need to get new ideas, you need to figure out mentors, good mentors, bad mentors, various things like that. So I am optimistic that we will meet our targets by 2022 for 2 reasons. One is that it's a collectively agreed upon set of targets and strategies, not those that we in government came up with. It's those in the industry, those who have skin in the game, those who have invested their lives and their money in the business. That is why I take the national export strategy seriously. And the second thing is companies like Keells that are actually putting their shoulder to getting the job done. So I think what you should do, if you're standing here, you have an interest in this subject, use this opportunity. Don't rely too much on us. Government is an impermanent, flexible, sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't have it kind of thing. But you guys will always be here, right? Industry will always be here. People will always do new things and take up new challenges. And we'll do what we can to help you. Thank you.
Well said, Professor. And I think you especially could very well relate to those parental units who are very curious yet caring about what you actually do. Yeah. And next we'd like to invite the head of John Keells X and Assistant Vice President of JKH, Vishant Vijay Singha, to speak a few words about the Accelerator program. He's actually the man behind the scene. Ladies and gentlemen, Vishant.
Thank you. So I'll just quickly take you through what's in store for John Keells X this year. If you can't see the screen, you may want to just slide this way. It's predominantly everything is on the screen. So just a bit of history, what went down in 2016. It was more of a business idea competition. From the 150 applicants, we had 10 teams participating in the program. We had 3 million in prize money for the first and second place. We saw Jendo winning first place. I think Keells is also here. First place, 2 million rupees, no strings attached prize money. And second place, we had Markify. So based on the feedback we got from this program and the enthusiastic response from all the participants, we thought, okay, why not take this to the next level, which brings us to JKX 2.0, which kicked off in 2017. From over 300 applications, we narrowed it down to 20 for the pre-accelerator window. From those 20, the 6 teams here secured seed investment of rupees 2 million for 5% of their company. And as Krishan mentioned, we've seen good progress from some of these teams, and we would say they're poised for their next level in growth in the coming year. Which brings us to JKX 3.0. Just a quick video we did, if you can go to the video.
You have a startup idea, but you don't know what your next step is. Now is not the time to slow down. Instead, you should accelerate. Here's how. Apply to John Keells X. Get into a program that takes your startup to the next level. Pitch your idea. Be awesome. Get into the pre-accelerator. Up to 30 teams will be selected for an entrepreneurship curriculum curated at MIT. Learn how to create and run a company and develop an MVP. Pitch your company for rupees 2.5 million and entry into the accelerator. Get into the accelerator. Up to 7 teams get funding and enter the accelerator. Learn how you grow your company fast and get access to a lot of resources. Pitch your company again for up to rupees 50 million and the chance to be famous. Why should you apply? Vital first stage investment, entrepreneurship training, connections, mentorship, resources and office space. Applications close on the 6th of February.
So I'll quickly take you through all that. Where we are at the moment in the applications phase, the early applicant deadline was 6th Jan. We have time till the 6th of February to submit applications. Then we'll move on to a pre-accelerator window of 3 months, which is from March to May. And then we'll move into the JKX accelerator, which is from June to December, so 6 to 7 month period. So what is the pre-accelerator all about? Up to 30 teams had the chance to get shortlisted for this phase. We would like to focus on the minimum viable product, your MVP. So this is the phase where you will do your product validation, customer validation. We would have scheduled MVP checkpoints throughout these 3 months because we strongly believe there is no point entering the accelerator without an MVP because there'll be nothing to accelerate. Strong focus will be on this, in this phase. How we would help you to get to demo days, we based our curriculum as such on this framework, disciplined entrepreneurship framework. It's a simple but comprehensive 24-step approach. It's created by Bill Orlett at MIT. We have a short video on what the international trainers had to say about the program last year and what we have in store for this year.
Hi, my name is Marius. I'm a serial entrepreneur, consultant, a designer, a former doctor, and many, many things. One of my core beliefs is that a startup is not a product or an app or a service or a device. A startup is a business. And this is what I'm constantly trying to teach founders and accelerators and everybody who's involved in entrepreneurship. I've worked with MIT, Singularity University, and many others, accelerators and programs around the world. And 2 years ago, visited Sri Lanka at the invitation of John Keells X to talk about disciplined entrepreneurship. I think the Sri Lankan environment is an amazing environment, very, very friendly people, very ambitious entrepreneurs. I think there's a lot of potential for startups in the country. We met some amazing teams and some very, very interesting founders, and we've watched over time their progress through the John Keells X program. And it's really exciting to keep in touch with them and see how much they've progressed in 1 year. This year we'll be working again with you we're supporting John Keells X again. We're going to do some webinars about discipline entrepreneurship, and then we'll be in Colombo, most likely in July, to carry a 2-day very, very intensive workshop with some of the teams. And we're really, really excited to be back really soon. Hope to see you there.
So that's one aspect of the pre-accelerator. We also have this thing called Tuesday Meetups, where we bring in senior leadership from John Keells to talk to the startups. So we have, last year we had even some of the judges coming in. We have Sacharita Subasinghe, who was president of retail, talking about his experience in the supermarkets. Mr. Gunaratna, now President Leisure, who spoke about his experience building the Elephant House brand. So there's a lot of knowledge that is there to be shared, which is why we had this. And then we had Mr. Gunawardhanas, who was part of the panel of judges last year, sharing what he felt was what investors look for in startups. So topics like that and what senior leadership would come in and talk about. Then we also have workshops, so basic corporate finance basics for entrepreneurs, legal. So on the corporate finance side, your valuations, your KPIs on the legal side, your IP assignments. So all the basics that you would need to know as an entrepreneur. Some other pre-accelerator benefits, you'll be assigned a mentor from JKH, of course access to the JKH companies and their leadership, cloud credits, and amongst other benefits. All this brings you to demo day. You'll be pitching to this panel of judges. Again, I stress the importance of the MVP. So without an MVP, you would not be put in front of the judges. So that's why we have that 3-month window where you can, if you're an idea or a concept stage startup, that's where you build it. If you're an early stage startup with already pre-existing customers and revenue, that's fine. You use that time to iterate, learn more about your product, and you pitch for, after 17 is the chance to pitch for 2.5 million for 6.25% of their startup. So this is where it gets really interesting. Into the accelerator, 6-month accelerator. This is what we need to show in the accelerator. This is where you would do your market validation, revenue testing. You need to show people that many people use your product or service and that they actually pay, and that you can scale customers. How we would start, so the same trainers will be coming down to Sri Lanka for an intense 3-day workshop. This training will now be customized for your startup, more on sales and marketing, your unit economics, so basics, 3-day intense workshop on that. We're also getting down Growth Tribe again, so this is all things digital marketing. We were mind blown last time with all the tools and techniques that they use. I'm sure they'll have something new in store for us. We also have a short video on what they have in store.
How many experiments is your company currently running per week, per month, per year? This is why companies like Amazon, Netflix, Facebook, or Google are so powerful. This is why we launched the Growth Hacking course a couple years ago. Our course is for hands-on people who want to upskill or reskill, for hands-off executives who want to take better decisions, for anybody who wants to grow faster than the competition. And the results have been amazing. This course gets an average 9.3 out of 10. We've trained people from over 800 companies, and we're currently training 300 people per month. Our teachers are real practitioners. You'll be guided by some of the best in Europe.
The Growth Tribe team is super excited to come back to John Keells X this year.
And we're really looking forward to meeting you all in Sri Lanka.
Don't forget to send your application before the deadline.
So that will be towards October, November in the accelerator period. This is what excites us the most, actually. I think Krishan mentioned where startups that are aligned to John Keells will have an added advantage in the sense of realizing synergies. So you get access to our customers, our customer channels, systems, and data where applicable. What we want to do is we want to give you JKH in a box. Come have fun in it, experiment, deploy your product, deploy your service, get feedback, iterate, and add value to these businesses. So businesses spanning from leisure, transport, consumer foods, insurance, just predominantly life insurance, retail, that's a Keells Super, property, banking, and all the industries mentioned there. We would have regular progress reviews, so there's weekly progress reviews, and also a monthly check-in with your mentors. Again, mentors will be assigned from the senior leadership at JKH. and we also have meetups. Some of the other resources and benefits, you'll be given free office space in Colombo for the duration of the accelerator. Access to our corporate services, so you need help with your legal, secretarial, HR, finance, you've got that help from us. Cloud credits up to USD 10K, and technical support. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the ultimate prize. This is what everyone should strive to achieve. You have a chance to pitch for up to 50 million rupees at the end of the accelerator, depending on your progress. We'll now move into a Q&A. So you have a chance to ask any questions.
All right, this is the interesting part, I guess. But before that, I think just adding on to what Vishant said, I've personally been bugging him to rope me into the growth hacking workshop ever since I met these guys from Growth Tribe last year, and it's going to be an exciting one for you all. So with that, guys, we move on to our panel of Q&As, and we'd like to invite Mr. Ramesh Ramuganathan, Group CIO and Executive Vice President of John Keells, alongside who I'd like to call a baby boomer with a millennial mindset, Mr. Adit Gonavadana. I think I'm very right in saying that. And Vishant here, of course, the head of JKX, to answer all the technical questions and all you would have about the accelerator program and the deadlines and the application process. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Adit Gonavadana, Mr. Ramesh Shanmuganathan, and Vishant Vijay Singha.
Middle pick.
All right, so feel free to throw any and all questions you have. Don't feel shy, right? You guys are from the startup scene, and growth and just projecting yourselves out of the ordinary shouldn't be something out of the norm. Yep. So I think I'd like to kickstart the Q&As with a very simple question. You as investors and mentors in the startup scene, what would you expect a startup to be, or look for in a startup, in essence?
Godfather.
I'm just here for program-related questions.
Mr. Gunawardhan, shall we start with you, please?
It's a rather broad question, right? Very difficult to answer that. I mean, obviously you want the startup to be a success, but outside that, you want it to be a game changer. You want it to be something, because of the risk that is being taken, you want it to change the course of the way business is done. I mean, I think that is the fundamental thing, and in the process, gather momentum.
Yeah, I think I alluded to that 4M model, which a lot of us use in assessing startups. First thing is, what's the market that you're looking for in addressing a problem, and whether it's a big enough a problem to solve. Second thing is, in terms the model that you're trying to apply to commercialize that opportunity. Third one, obviously, is the management team, the team itself, how cohesive and how dynamic the team is. The fifth one, what I just mentioned, is the momentum. How do you really then take it from a startup stage to an acceleration phase and to growth phase? So I think that's the litmus test that I normally put through, which is a model I think which is very, very prevalent.
All right, thank you. Guys, the floor is open. Any and all questions? Come on, guys. You're part of the startup scene, and we'd expect you to be out of the ordinary. Don't embarrass yourselves. Yeah, go for it.
So you mentioned that market size, based on the market size, obviously that's vital to evaluate a startup. But in Sri Lankan context, what we realized is like getting that exact market size is very difficult. And I'm from a corporate, I'm from MAS actually. Once we were doing this study on tourism, and in fact I had a chat with Ramesh David on like some numbers, and even he mentioned that it was difficult to get those numbers and nobody has those data. In that case, how would a startup actually put down those numbers? Because I know in the US, when we do a study on in US, it's easy to put a number. This is the size of the market. But in Sri Lanka, we've realized it's really difficult. So how does John Keells X or like anyone else help us in that case?
I think like what Krishan mentioned, I think that's where probably we are also looking at lineage to our industries.
Yeah.
So obviously you would have industry statistics from our group of companies to start with, right? Because obviously a total addressable market will evolve, right?
Yeah.
So initially I think the bigger question that I would have for you is what's the problem that you're trying to solve, and is it pervasive enough? Quantifying the market will evolve, and you would obviously not absolutely quantify it day one. But that's where we say in the acceleration phase, when you're clear, when you're pivoted on MVP, your market also would evolve, right? Because that's the reason that you would pivot. Where you would have an initial idea, you might think that's not big enough to address the market that, from a growth phase, and you would want to pivot to make it much more attractive. Right?
No, what I mean is like sometimes when we have a casual chat with someone, like we realize that there is a good enough opportunity, but just to put that number, like it's like 2 million people suffer from this or like something like that, to put the number.
So certain statistics, as I said, from the group companies you could get through the dialogue. That's the whole reason the ecosystem play is that you have access to the John Keells ecosystem.
Thank you for that question.
On your MVP, what are the basis you are looking at the MVP, minimum viable product?
Should I go for it? Again, depends on your business.
Say it's a product, a consumer product.
So the most basic version of your product, which you can use for market feedback and iteration, right?
Okay. So what kind of a market? So sorry, what kind of a market you are looking at when it's MVP? Do you go initially you're going towards the acceleration program, or?
Yeah, I think if you're looking at a 2.5 million investment for like a 5 to 7% stake, you got to then have that multiply impact, right? So you need to look at that opportunity which can scale to that warrant that kind of investment.
Thank you.
It's very difficult to give you a straight
answer. Yeah.
All right.
So what if your product is not really capable of giving you an MVP right away, because if it's like hydroponics or something of that nature, like something bigger than just a product that is can be displayed.
It's a bit of a tricky one,
yeah.
But we believe that any product or service can have an MVP.
Prototype-wise, yeah.
Yeah.
I understand. I mean,
just something that you can gauge your market, test your revenue models.
So in that case, will it work with data that you can go into in terms of certain products that might not be able to be presented with a basic minimum viable product?
Would you have a prototype or nothing?
Nothing at all, yeah.
It's a tough one. Maybe Ajit, social entrepreneurial thing, similar. Yeah.
What?
Is it?
Don't toss that to me.
It's a tough thing to answer. Because you got to then take your chances then. You got to convince us, then you have a good team and a good idea and a potential.
Yeah. Am I allowed to ask something relating to the negotiation in the contract? There was some small thing that's a bit fuzzy about it. Could you explain about that part where you mentioned about the replication of John Keells having the right to replicate the product? Could you just explain what exactly do you mean, in the sense, is it relating to what we propose or in the future, or
you're talking about the clause in the agreement. Yeah. So we are firm believers that we have stated this in the agreement as well, that anyone can have an idea, but it's basically how you would execute that idea, that what you bring to the table. So which is why we probably put that clause in there. And according to applications to replicate, but just in case, say, what if we were working on that at this given time? It all depends on how you execute it.
All right, okay. So,
Yeah.
but it's also out of consent, or it's everything what we propose, or is it like it's basically
what you bring to the table is your IP. You own your IP.
all right, right.
It's totally owned by you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So what, because the group is big, right?
Yeah.
So there could be similar idea which might get mooted at the same time.
Yeah.
So all we are saying is we are covering ourselves in that aspect, not that we are trying to steal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not the idea.
What you bring to the table is yours. You own the IP.
I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
That's worth a clarification. So,
Thank you for the
understandable.
question. That's a common concern, actually.
Just want to know what you guys think about manufacturing in Sri Lanka. By I think not manufacturing, not high tech. It's something like apparel is a sector that has been growing rapidly over the how many decades and has really put Sri Lanka on the forefront, right? Do you see something similar like that in other industries like footwear and stuff like that? Or something of the similar sort, like where you think Sri Lanka could do something unique enough that it would be export ready? You'd see people, not just the niche markets, but like everybody seeing something that we could make something uniquely Sri Lankan.
I'm not sure whether we can make something uniquely Sri Lankan. It's possible, but Sri Lanka as a manufacturing base, as a general term, the answer is no. We don't have the cost advantages and the numbers to create scale, but Sri Lanka can play in a high value adding environment where we can get into certain niche manufacturing. So we can, it's possible, but it can't be we can't be competing with the mass markets of Bangladesh and India and so on. So it'll have to be at the high end. What product, I have no idea, but there are existing products that can move in here in certain aspects of the higher end of electronics and so on, because our cost base can support that with higher skills. The skill levels are pretty high here. But if your question is what is it that we can invent to be manufactured here, I have no idea. I wouldn't know.
Thank you.
So we've got a question there.
Just a follow-up question on the very first question about market size. You said the data is available within your within the JK holdings. So obviously when you are pitching from here, this side, you don't have access to that data. Once you get selected, only you have access to that data. So how do you sort of overcome that?
So certain of the things we could give guesstimates if you want any specific thing. That's why I think as part of the engagement, you might get some kind of data that if you want to get from us, we could release it based on what you're asking for. But obviously, as I said, the total addressable market initially is going to be an assessment, but we are more interested about the idea and the team. Right? As I said, the 4M model. When you come to acceleration, obviously the time is going to be important, not so critical in the initial phases.
Okay. Even if the idea is really small, even if the market size is really small, but the problem is worth solving, would that
If it's an expensive problem, then it has to be a very expensive problem.
Okay, you have marked up 6 sectors like transportation, tourism, like that. Why no pharmaceutical or nutraceutical? In recent times, the nutraceutical market and the pharmaceutical markets are very growth, like 20 to 22% growth is in Sri Lanka. So why you didn't put that market? Because
so yeah, that slide was just to show what the JK verticals are. Just to say that those startups.
You should ask that from the channel.
No, actually, a lot of talent guys are there out in the market who are struggling to start up new ideas with these pharmaceutical and nutraceutical. The problem is the regulation is very tight in Sri Lanka, but in kind of John Keells, the company support, it will be very easy to access, and the overall 20 to 22% we can get a high revenue. And the growth of these nutraceutical and pharmaceuticals. See, any idea of applying that for us?
You can, yeah, for sure, yeah.
Shown on the screen, or just the businesses that John Keells is in? Look at me another. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, go for it.
So this is actually a question which we followed by comment as well.
going back to the thing about the whole strategic location thing. So one of the things that gamers have issues with is pings, right? Like, latency and stuff like that. So do you think like having like a local data center where you can have those guys come and host games over there, for example, you could actually attract the South Asian market to actually be like getting gamers to purchase servers from Sri Lankan markets if you have a data center over here, sort of thing.
But would that matter where you, because I'm not sure in the, no, data center obviously latency it matters, but what I'm saying is today the infrastructure I think is scaling out and compute power has become cheaper by the day. Right? I don't think that's going to be an inhibitor.
Actually, I got to know this from the guys who play games at my office. So there's a 4 millisecond ping, like that makes huge difference in how they actually game.
At the JKX office.
Now I know where the bandwidth is.
No, you're right. It depends who you're playing against. You're playing against somebody who is having the same latency, it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
So we play off like generally based in Singapore, sort of, that's the region that we have, Southeast Asia. But if you take Sri Lanka, we're central to the entire world, and we're central to South Asia as well, for example.
So it's the issue right now is that the demand in South Asia still doesn't justify setting up those data centers. But my guess is over the next 3 years that will happen. And yeah, Sri Lanka is ideally located to do that. Absolutely.
How is the government going to play a role in this whole thing? What kind of support are they planning to give?
Government.
Listen, I think it was mentioned by the professor earlier. Don't rely on government for anything. Surely you know that. Your business plan and your long-term strategies has to be formulated and designed to operate despite government.
But there are certain points where you need some approvals and things like that.
Approvals are not a problem.
Approvals are tough. Because the government wasn't there for a while, there was some problems. But you take, for example, the acceleration program should extend more.
So you should bring in a digital government as well.
We're working on some of those, but if you take, for example, this latency problem that came up earlier, I mean, possibly government, but multiple actors have brought the right kinds of cables here. So, for example, instead of having a spur, we now have the direct connectivity to Mathura, which is actually shaved off some milliseconds from the latency. I would think that if we can do better internally with the internal connectivity, but again, things are happening because we have competition, and I think the electricity situation is a factor in the costs. We have 2 level 3 data centers. I mean, we can do better than that. But as I said, it's not desperate. Things are not at a tragic situation, right? They're all right. They could always be better, but that's what I always say about anything. They could always be better. So we see our role as, if possible, we'll remove barriers, right? But as Ajit says, don't rely on us for your business case. We do what we can, and if we pull something off, that's a plus, it's a bonus, and you'll succeed. It will be extraordinary, right? That's what we can do. We can give you that bonus, and we try hard, right? And I can say, I mean, Ajit, that we have helped companies like PickMe and so on. They do acknowledge that we have played a role in helping them get to where they are.
As an investor, as a business person, when you look into a company, what are the factors which will say, no, I'm not definitely going to invest in this?
The person? That's the number one factor,
yeah.
Especially in a startup.
Okay.
It's the individual, the sort of your belief that that person can pull it off, right? That's number one. And number two is essentially what they're all talking about. You have to have a business. I mean, it sort of getting back to your question, which is linked here, yeah, we don't have the efficiency of most of the countries where all the information is available, data is available, and so on. But there are ways of getting this information. It's not available in a single center, but you can get it. You can actually be able to establish what you think the market size is going to be locally. And it's a slightly longer process. It requires a lot more effort, but you have no choice but to do that. So scale is really important. I mean, there's no point solving a small problem. There really isn't. It has to be a problem that can scale up to a point where you have a viable business.
And the second question is, during this process of competition, how can our business model and our idea can be protected? When on a panel of 4 individuals in a private room, that's fine. Like you can do an NDA. But in open arena, how can our idea and business model can be protected during this process?
So the pictures are primarily in a closed room environment, so you don't have to worry about that. Demo day is a closed room environment.
All right.
Yes.
Yes, please.
So we just spoke about scale. So in JKS, how does JKS help a startup to expand outside Sri Lanka?
So interesting one. How we would view that is.
What would be the help that would be given by John Keells?
And it's best answered by Mr. Varinder, but I will start off. View Sri Lanka as probably a test market. Test the markets here before thinking of even going global. And then I'm sure a company of this magnitude would be able to establish the connections needed once you've established a business model here to take it outside.
And also, I think John Keells is a good reference. I think if you have John Keells as a reference, I don't think regionally it will open doors for you. So
endorsement.
Yeah. So there are enough of your current colleagues who are being accelerated. You could speak to them in terms of what kind of help they've got.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Got time for a few more, probably. One or two.
You said there has to be some MVP in order to go for a final pitch or like that. But I will come to the point where in order to come up for the MVP, there has to be a research at least to the market and the problem research. In that level, sometimes there are people who have the idea, but they have to do the potential research in order to go for a MVP. For those kind of idea concept stage people, what can you give as an advice?
So I think you should start your research yesterday. Start as soon as possible. Don't delay the research because what we feel is, again, there is no point entering the accelerator without an MVP because there will be nothing to accelerate.
So
and then the true potential from the accelerator, it won't do justice to you and to us as well.
Adding to that, so research, it contains market research and the process research. For example, if you have an idea, so if you wanted to build up it, so sometime you may have to go in deep and do the research whether we can go for MVP or not. Is it practical or not? So in that scenario, there are researchers like that in the chemical and the laboratory testings and like that. For those kind of things, what can you tell us?
So what I would suggest is there are good sites like CB Insights. Use those sites because it catalogs a lot of the research, ongoing startup activity across the globe. And if you get to that, you can see what's happening, what is gaining momentum, what's not gaining momentum. I think that would give you cues in terms of where you want to really put your finger and focus on something. If that helps.
Maybe one or two more questions, and then we go in for the informal networking.
Yes, over at the back.
Can you explain on the plantation sector, how much are you involved in the plantation and agriculture?
I think
It's mostly low-grown tea and brokering is what we're involved in currently.
So do you include agriculture also into that?
So we've accelerated one of the agriculture. I think as you would know, this time we've accelerated one of the agriculture-based idea, the current acceleration.
Plantation is mostly tea and brokering.
Tea and brokering, yeah.
But on the manufacturing side, so we can give you access to, like for example, the ginger farmers, vanilla farmers, things like that.
What about optimizing one of your processes like energy optimization, heat factory, providing integrated solutions, things like that?
So is it a problem at scale? I think we are not looking at whatever you're trying to do in isolation to John Keells. Is it a pervasive problem that you're trying to accelerate? So don't just look at a small or specific thing at John Keells if it doesn't have scale.
What if you have a prototype and go further to like a actual MVP is actually really expensive. So instead we showed you mathematically through simulation that's feasible. Would that be?
It's a bit of a tricky one. Come talk to us about your idea. We'll probably have better feedback for you. Yeah, it's hard to give a straight up answer for that. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Excuse. Sorry.
So there's a question that has come up at many accelerator programs, and a big feedback from the judges is that a lot of money in Sri Lanka is in the corporate side, and that if you want to take your startup into the normal mass consumer, that you might have to focus on very small things, and or you'll have to have a lot of money to market it. So when as a startup, how do you decide whether you are going to provide a solution to the corporate side, or you're going to provide a solution to the mass market?
You can't. The solution is not for a corporate. The whole point from what I know is to create a viable business standalone, not solve a specific corporate problem. So you have to look at the wider market, the total market. And yeah, it's your distribution, all of this costs a lot of money, but if you have that product that is viable and that starts scaling, the money will come behind it. So don't look at it in terms of solving a minor problem for the corporate, you know. I wouldn't think that's what you're looking at.
If you really look at the technology play today, I think the platforms ecosystem play is taking the intermediaries out, taking the friction out of the system. So if you look at innovating something where you're taking friction out of current system, which is going to help scale, which is going to disintermediate the intermediaries, right? Democratize data. I think that's where you need to be looking at. Where are these pockets, islands which are getting built up, which needs to get fused? It could be corporate, it could be anywhere.
Thank you very much, and gents.
I got one more, just following up a question regarding expanding overseas. What about startups that are focusing on their customer base being overseas, the international community? For example, like we are in Blood Games, we want to create games for the international market. And is the John Keells X, are you guys saying, no, you need to focus on like Sri Lankan market first, and then we'll see if it's viable, etc.?
I don't think we are saying that. What we said, I think Krishna clarified, what we are saying is we are looking for preference in terms of alignment to our industries, but that's not a must. So if you feel there's an addressable market in being in gaming or whatever you're suggesting internationally, that's fine. Because in the startup world, if it's a digital platform, it'd be stupid to say that market is Sri Lanka. We're not saying that.
I hope that answered your question. All right, I'm sure you've got plenty more questions to go around, but thank you very much, gentlemen. And we move on to an informal session of networking, so feel free to quiz them up even further because the knowledge is all over and it's only for you to fill your plate up. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up once again for Mr. Adit Gunawardana, Mr. Ramesh Ramganathan, and Vishant Vijay Singha of JKX. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we wish you all the very best and good luck with your pitches and your demo and accelerator stages. All the best again.